changing your life one story at a time. This is the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast with Editor-in-Chief Amy Newmark.
Hey, it's Amy Newmark with your daily dose of Chicken Soup for the Soul inspiration. Yesterday was Wow Wednesday, and I told you about a woman who miraculously overcame her paralysis and sat up and talked right before she died. Now today is Thoughtful Thursday, and I'm going to tell you a couple of stories that made me think. These stories are about two elderly people who knew their time was coming and went out with style, exactly as they wanted. The first story is about my own father-in-law, Bill Sr., who in January 2013 decided he was ready to die. We got a phone call from my sister-in-law, Debbie, with whom he was living, and she informed us that we needed to get over there right away. Now, Bill Sr. had suffered a stroke a few years earlier, and his left side was paralyzed, and every part of his body was starting to fail. He was in pain, and he felt useless. He kept saying that he was ready to go. So we cut short a weekend vacation we were on, and we rushed over there to see Bill Sr. And we took turns going in. We each got some private time with him at his bedside, and he took the opportunity to tell my husband how proud he was of him. And he asked me if he had been a good father-in-law, which he had. He said it was a difficult decision, but it was time for him to go. He even apologized to me that he was going to miss my son's wedding. It was really sad, and we left in tears, deeply missing him already. But the next morning, which was Monday, Bill Sr. woke up and said, "Debbie, am I dead yet?" And she assured him that he was still alive. And Tuesday morning he woke up. "Debbie, am I dead yet?" "No, Dad, you're still alive." By Tuesday night, my husband was wondering what to do. He had called his father every night for 20 years, except for the last 2 nights when he didn't want to bother him while he was dying. I'm not sure why we were all convinced that Bill would die when he wanted to, but we really believed that he had it within his power to do so that Sunday. By Wednesday, my husband had resumed calling his dad. And Thursday morning, Bill announced that God had spoken to him during the night, and in what sounded a bit like Borscht Belt comedy had said, "So what's your hurry?" So Bill decided that he might as well get out of bed and have some breakfast Thursday morning. 2 weeks later, he presided over his 91st birthday party. He was actually in good spirits. He was telling stories and cracking jokes. So we all pretended that we hadn't said those heartfelt goodbyes. And when Bill Sr. died 5 months later, it was in accordance with his wishes. He was in his own bed. There were no doctors, no needles, no interference at all. And then he couldn't speak or open his eyes. But the great thing was that he had already said his goodbyes months before. He did a wonderful thing for our family, giving us the chance to have our final talks with him while he was still lucid and unhurried and capable of conversation. The writer, Harriet Beecher Stowe, has a great quote. She says, "The bitterest tears shed over graves are for words left unsaid." My father-in-law was a wise man. He made sure that no words were left unsaid. And we have another stylish goodbye story in our book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Thanks to My Mom. This story is by Judith Lavori Kaiser. It's called A Last Request and a Lasting Lesson. And Judith tells us that she and her 4 siblings were gathered for her mother's death, one they had all been expecting as she had terminal cancer. And their mother was a born organizer, so she had organized her death perfectly. She had each kid stay with her for a week while she was in hospice, and she made that time special for each child. And she had seen to every detail, transportation back to her New York birthplace, funeral arrangements. She had even arranged the florist who would provide the graveside floral arrangements. She had also left an errand for her children. Although she hadn't felt strong enough to see her friends and neighbors at the end, she wanted to thank them for everything they had done for her before she went into hospice. She had arranged to have a case of sparkling wine purchased, and she asked her kids to decorate each bottle with ribbons and deliver the bottles after her death to all those neighbors who had been so kind to her. So one cold, damp day, the 5 siblings set out and walked through the neighborhood, delivering these bottles of sparkling wine to the neighbors, along with the news of their mother's death and her instructions to her friends. Please use this champagne to toast to our friendship. I'm Amy Newmark. Thank you for listening to the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast today. I'd be grateful if you would help me spread the word by telling your friends. You can also rate and review the podcast on our iTunes page. And tomorrow, please join me for a conversation with Dr. Christian Conti. He is one of the nation's experts on anger management and one of the experts on the new VH1 television show, Family Therapy. If you'd like to read more about the book I mentioned today, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Thanks to My Mom, please go to our website, chickensoup.com.